Welcome to the Writers' Corner live show. On the Writers' Corner live show, we connect authors from around the globe to each other and with their readers. Readers can find and explore new authors to love. You will meet both seasoned as well as new and aspiring authors. So, I invite you today to get the backstory of none other than our featured author for this week, two-time top voice on LinkedIn, Dustin McKissen. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome. If you're just joining us, welcome to the Writers' Corner live show. I'm your host, Brigetti Limbanda. I'm a live video camera confidence coach, and I host and produce live video shows to help brands, entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and of course, authors tell their stories. I'm also a responsible social media advocate. And I want to introduce you to my co host, who is Mary. Mary, welcome to the show.
Hello, Brigetti. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Mary, for
Mm.
in the audience who haven't met you before, tell us a bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm a wife and a mother to three inspirations, I call them. I am an author of a children's series, Poolicious. Third one will be coming out very soon. I'm so excited. And I've got a middle grade reader coming out next year with that my 16-year-old is doing. It's gonna be a graphic novel. So she's doing all the graphics and she's doing it on her iPad. So it's all those graphic images is just so cool. Oh my gosh, I'm so
Oh, yeah,
excited about it. Yeah, it's just amazing.
that's
I
awesome.
know, I'm so excited. And then I'm working on an autobiography or ghost writing for it's a gospel music, Christian music family, like Southern gospel Christian music. And Thornton Klein, who we've had on, who is one of our friends, and he's a co-writer. We are embarking on another either YA or middle grade because it's such a hot genre right now. So we are working on that, and then we've got this huge project. We've just submitted to finding a publisher for it because it'll be an 8-book series, and it will.
Wow.
Yes, I'm so excited, and we're hoping to get it into schools around the globe. Not just the United States, but everywhere. And we're doing it in. We're working with it's called the 8 Keys of Excellence. So it's already something that's in schools, but we're doing it for like ages 4 to 8. So it'll be for younger kids because we both really love writing empowering stuff for kids, because hoping to kind of help them to start early with those tools to help them through life. They really
Right.
need it starting young. And if you can't get them young, then you got to get them as they're growing older. But, stuff that's going to really help them be the best kids, the best adults they can be in life, to be very, successful, and things to help them with self-regulation of emotions and things that are going on in their life where they feel like they have no control. It's hard for us even as adults, isn't it?
Absolutely. It really is. Let's just say welcome to everyone. I want to say hello. We've got an audience today on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on YouTube, on Periscope, and on Twitter. So hello, everybody, and a special shout out to Tish. Tish, by the way, you have got a prize. You won the book giveaway for our show 2 shows back. So we need to connect so we can get you hooked up with your book prize. Um,
Absolutely.
so yeah, you've got a book. You've got a book, and then we'll be doing the draw for last week's show soon as well. So Tish, please do reach out and connect with me. So our author for today is none other than Dustin McKissen. Dustin is a two-time top voice on LinkedIn. His columns have been read by more than 15 million people. Wrap your head around that one.
Wow.
That is Awesome. That is awesome. Yes, Tish, it's absolutely great. Look forward to getting a message from you. So Dustin is also a columnist and a contributor at Inc., at CNBC, at VentureBeat, CNN, and other national media outlets. He also has a master's degree in public management. He has an MBA and a bachelor's degree in public policy. And his book that we're going to be talking about today is his second novel. It's called The Poor and the Haunted. So we look forward to hearing a little bit more about that.
Absolutely. He's got a great bio. What an exciting journey he's been on his life and in his life. And he's got his hand in kind of a little bit of everything, that has to do with writing and social, media and interviewing and being interviewed. And how super cool is that?
Absolutely. Shall we get him onto the show?
Absolutely.
Okie dokie. Let's invite him on. Dustin, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Yay, you're here. It's so fun to meet you in person.
It's nice to meet the two of you in person too. And again, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Where are you at to start off?
So I recently moved to Bellingham, Washington, which is basically right on the Canadian border after having lived in St. Louis for 6 years, but I grew up in the West in Utah and Arizona and Washington. So we came back here, and there's a very strong writing community in this city. So that was part of what pulled us here, was just writing and the arts in general, but specifically for the size of city it is, there is a really thriving literary community here.
Oh, that's very exciting and really supportive. It kind of keeps you in that mindset as opposed to not, you got people around you to hold you accountable. Say, hey, dude, did you get it done? Are you working on it?
Or yes, absolutely. And it was kind of funny because, the main way that I earn a living is through my communications consulting company. And so one of the things that's kind of this is total side note, but it comes back to writing. One of the things that's kind of difficult when you own your own business and you move around, or even trying to get a car or whatever, is just the financing structures and banks and all those sorts of things. They're really built not for business owners. And so when we were looking to move here, it was just presenting a little bit of a challenge finding a home. And we ended up renting a very nice home, actually from another writer who understood, that sort of inconsistent income flows and those sorts of things. And so, yeah, I mean, right from the get-go, it was awesome to be in that sort of community.
So cool. And you say who's your support system? Sorry, Brigetti.
No problem. Actually, my main support system is by far and away my wife, Megan. We have been married for 16 years, and she's an editor. She's an encourager. She is a business partner, everything. And then we have 3 kids that our oldest daughter is 20, and then 14, or almost 20, and then 14 and 11.
Oh, you're spread out like I am. That's awesome.
That is awesome. I relate so much to what you say because, my husband and I, we've been married for 28 years now, December. Well, actually, the 2nd of November. This weekend is our 28th. And ever since we met, that's how we met, actually, working together. So that's all we kind of know, is working with each other,
Yeah. It's one of those things that I'm sure you can relate, where it's really, really awesome, like 98% of the time. But when it goes wrong and you are enmeshed in everything in the other's life, a fight just blows right through every type of ability to be productive. And we don't have a lot of us, but yeah, you know how it is.
The dynamic certainly is different. It's very, very different to when you each go your own way for the rest of the day and you kind of only see each other in the evening. But when you're kind of in each other's spaces 24/7, I must be honest, the first couple of years were challenging.
Yeah.
You learn to mellow out as the years go by, and you learn not to sweat the small stuff, and kind of learn how to separate, this is work time, this is family time, and cleaning the house time, and just kind of putting them in the boxes where they belong. But it's a very interesting dynamic, I mean, as a couple, I think it's phenomenal. Most people I know kind of like, you got to be kidding me. I don't want to work with my wife or my husband. Like,
Yeah.
you married them.
Yeah.
It's going to be work either way.
Well,
So it's,
it is work. Yes, absolutely.
yeah.
But so I just want to quickly acknowledge Maureen says hello in the comments on LinkedIn. And she
Awesome.
also says hello to you, Dustin.
Oh, that is awesome. We'll tell her, hello, Maureen.
That's awesome.
If,
So,
if you could wave a magic wand, Dustin, about, your life, the way you're working currently, and now you're an author as well. If you could wave a magic wand and change one thing, what would it be?
Oh, that's a really great question. It would have been honestly if I could change anything, it would be. I mean, if I could just wave any magic wand, I think I would want the thing that most authors want, which is to be able to focus wholly on my writing and the fiction that I love doing.
mhm.
Um, but maybe a different one is that if I could maybe change anything, it would have been to be a little bit more patient when I was younger, and kind of what you were just saying about it going beyond just obviously marriage to my career and even my writing is just not sweat the small stuff, have a longer term look, because it's really easy to get, wrapped up in the moment, especially honestly with this book publishing of, okay, it's not going to be evaluated by what it's done 2 hours after it releases the day it's published. And so I feel like I've gotten to be better at that, but I wasn't always good at that, and I think it really held me back. So there's a really detailed answer and kind of two answers, but that's what I
Yeah.
have to say.
That was not a small question, but it was a really good one, wasn't it? I mean, because you think about, oh my gosh, okay, I have like a bazillion things I want to change, but wait, what's the most important one? That would have made like a big, big difference in my life. So you have 2 novels, right?
Yeah, so it's kind of a funny story. So I originally wrote a novel called The Civil War at Home, which is not a horror novel. I had an opportunity to, and this is actually maybe goes into a little advice for anyone who's interested, who's watching this or listening to this. I wrote a novel. It was something I always wanted to do. I never really had an interest in writing a business book or a how-to book, and I wrote it. It was called The Civil War at Home. I had the opportunity to publish it through a few different, actually independent publishers. I got some bad advice, and I coupled that with possibly my ego running amok for a moment, and that was, I was told with having a big following, or a big potential audience, self-publish this. You'll keep more of the money, and no one had any intent when they gave me that advice. But that is a that is much harder than I thought it would be. And I thought it was just kind of along the lines of, I started this business, and I've had success in my business writing and blog writing. Like, again, this is the ego part, probably, like, I can do this, and then you just realize how hard that is. I mean, separately from writing a book and getting something good. So I ended up self-publishing that, regretted it almost the moment that I did it. When we were kind of in the interim getting that book designed, and it did get very positive reviews and feedback for the people who did read it. But as I was working on that, I wanted to write a horror novel because horror was what I loved as a kid, and I wanted to write something that would be the kind of horror I would like, or that my mom, who introduced me to kind of reading and Stephen King and all that, the sort of stories that she would like. So I wrote what became The Poor and the Haunted. Resolved to not go down the self-publishing route, and was lucky to find Black Rose Writing really quickly, who I think has some experience working in sort of non-full-time authors and that sort of thing. So they've been great. And as we, I think, saw some traction with the pre-orders on The Poor and the Haunted, they offered to republish my book and kind of give it the professional treatment, especially in marketing, on the marketing and PR side, that I think it needed. So I actually got a second opportunity with the first novel. It'll republish this spring through Black Rose. And then, The Poor and the Haunted comes out in 2 days. So those are my two novels.
Yay! So we're like right in, because I couldn't remember the exact release date for the second book, but Bridgetti and I like to ask authors their journey and things like that, and you've really touched on a lot of stuff here: self-publishing versus traditional publishing, because there's two sides to the whole thing, and people believe this and people believe this, and then sometimes your own experience can be totally different than what somebody talks to you about. But you have had a unique opportunity where you've had a book that was backlogged, that has been brought back, that they're taking and giving you a contract on that too. And that's not a very common thing, I don't think, so that's awesome.
Yeah, and I was thank you, and I was very, very proud of that book. It actually got some traction, has gotten some traction as a potential movie property through a thing called Tail Flick. I don't know if any.
Yes,
you
I know
are
what
all
that
familiar.
is. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And so we submitted it to that, and it's actually made it further down the process. So it's a great opportunity. But I would guess if I was going to peel off a piece of advice for that, it would be definitely. Don't be, if your ego runs amok temporarily, at least have the sense to admit later that, like, nah, that was stupid. I didn't, and then without admitting that, I wouldn't even give myself the opportunity to have a second chance. You start justifying things and close off those opportunities. So it was a mistake that fortunately I get the chance to have a bit of a do-over on.
Yeah, it does. Will you tell everybody, because we've never talked about Tail Flick before on here. So do you want to give everybody kind of like a brief synopsis of what it is?
Yeah, so Tail Flick is a new startup, and in my business life, my wife and I both work with a lot of startups, so we're just kind of interested in these sorts of things in general. But we came across Tail Flick, and broadly speaking, what you do is submit a manuscript that you have to own the film rights to. So either it's self-published, or you're working with a publisher like Black Rose, who grants you the film rights, or who keeps that out of the contract. You submit your manuscript, and then they review it, and you can go. It can be a free thing, which is what my experience has been. You can pay to have Tail Flick put some of the weight of its, because it's started by a couple of different producers, I believe, who kind of put the weight of their knowledge behind the pitch. We might do that with The Poor and the Haunted, and and then they try and promote it as a movie property, and with the plethora of places that need content now, there's just a much broader
opportunity,
much wider opportunity for that than there used to be.
So they find your financial backing for it, is what you're saying, right?
Yeah, or even sell it off as someone can option the rights to it, and so.
Ooh, you have to let us know.
Yeah, I would definitely. I mean, that would be pretty exciting. And again, that's like everything in the writing community. For people outside of it, they hear like, "Oh, you sold the film rights." When does the new Lamborghini get to the garage? And that actually, it's almost my experience so far as a writer is that these things are all sort of building blocks for the next thing. In that, some of the traction we got with Tail Flick on the self-published book, I think, made Black Rose, more comfortable with taking on something that had already been out there, which again is something that's not very typical. So, same thing with selling the movie rights. I don't have direct experience in that. I've talked to some people, but the main, value of that for me would be, hey, read the book. It was good enough to be, someone picked it up as a movie. So and then you build on that. So, if I have something happen there, I will definitely let the two of you know.
Awesome, thank you. Tish says she's loving the conversation, and Gospel says, how do you spell Tail Flick? Like you say it, T-A-I-L?
It's
T-A-L-E.
It's T-A-L-E, Flick, F-L-I-C-K, all one word.
Okay.
So tail like T-A-L-E, not T-A-I-L.
A tale like you're telling a story, Yeah.
Not like a tail because you're a lion.
Though, yeah, if you were actually had a tail, your path to selling movie rights would probably be fairly smooth and quick, I would think. So that's
Oh my goodness. So Dustin, how did you fit writing into, I mean, running your own business, working with your wife? Do you guys work from home or do you have an office away from home?
we have both. We work a lot from home. For me, as a writer, whether I'm working on a novel or more often working on stuff for our clients, I work pretty good as I work well, kind of in solitude. But we do have an office there, and I get to fit it in because so my business actually had a unique path of coming into existence. I used to do something totally different. I ran lobbying groups, trade associations for specific industries. In 2014, I posted a post onto LinkedIn, and my wife, I had originally actually gone to school to be a writer and ended up majoring in public policy and working in kind of that space. My wife encouraged me to write, and eventually I posted a blog that was just on, getting your MBA online, kind of my take on it, on LinkedIn. That went viral. And then I subsequently kept publishing on LinkedIn, and they kept going viral, and my audience kept growing. Um, the and then probably about 6 months after that, a reader contacted me and asked me if I would be interested in being a communications consultant for an organization he served on the board of. And so that was kind of the birth of my business. So there's always a heavy communications and writing component for sure to the work we do, which makes it easier because I'm not coming in from the plant or spending all day coding and then have to have this like rapid shift in skills and mindset in order to write. I'm essentially writing or communicating all day, so it's easy to weave in with that. And then from a purely kind of capitalist business point of view, the creative work I do, the novels and a couple of short stories that have done pretty well, they the way I view the monetization of these things, which to begin with, if you're doing it to make money, you're way off base. So I do want to preface it with that.
Right.
But to some extent, you have to evaluate how you're using your time, right? And is there an emotional payoff? Is there a monetary payoff? Is there, because as the two of you know, writing is hard. It's so, and I see a monetization for the creative work I do in that it is one of the things that our clients talk about most and often first when they start working for us. So to kind of be more specific there, we work with a lot of cities and economic development organizations. We serve as their outsourced communications company or communications strategist. It's one thing, a lot of people in the business space that I operate in would sell themselves as creative. By publishing novels, that speaks to our ability to be creative with our clients in a really powerful way. And it says that no, not only do we just do creative work for you, but we are also, this is who we are. And I've seen a big payoff for the creative work. It's just like one of those things, when I was younger working in the government, one of the reasons I got an MBA was because it was shorthand for, maybe this guy knows a little bit about what he's talking about, essentially. Whether or not that was true was a different thing, but it would kind of be like, it would kind of be tacked on there as sort of a credibility thing when I would be introduced.
Right.
Yeah. And the novels actually serve that way in my business now, that like, it's just that extra thing that shows that we are truly a creative group of people. And so they've been worth it from that perspective already.
That's so cool how everything intertwines, isn't it, Brigetti?
Absolutely, very much. Have you got a copy of the book with you?
You know what? Can I jump off camera for just a second? It's out of my reach here. Hang on one.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. How exciting.
I know. I mean, I cannot imagine. I know how challenging it can be to work with your spouse, and then trying to write in between all of that is quite hectic. I know my husband's been trying to get a book out for years.
Has he?
I mean, he's written most of the stuff, but life just gets so crazy, and he's just not getting around to wrapping it up. So well done to you for getting not just one book out, but two. Have you got a favorite passage there that you'd like to read to us from the book?
Oh,
Oh, and yeah, I got a question real quick
Just
too.
a short snippet.
The age. What's your age for
Yeah.
Is it YA? Is it adult? Is it?
It is definitely adult.
Okay.
It is not, though, anything like my son has read it, and he is 14. There's some stuff there that is probably, depending on who the kid is, they might have some questions, but it is largely geared towards adults, and it is about adult issues. So, I'll hold up the book real quickly. So this is
Okay, I'm going to push it on full screen. Hold on a second.
Yes, I have seen your cover. I think David King does a great job on covers for books.
Yes, it is. It is a fantastic cover. I've actually gotten a lot of compliments on that. So, he did a really good job of making something that I think is really striking and has a tie to the story. I actually had one person on Facebook made some fan animation out of the cover and sent it to me, which was pretty cool. So there's a house with windows in it, and she made it so there were people moving behind the windows.
Very nice.
It was very cool. Yes.
All right, that's so cool.
And then,
go ahead.
Oh no, I was going to say that would. I don't know if you were going to ask about this. I'll definitely. I need to kind of comb through the back of my mind of the portion I want to read. But the other thing that I think would be beneficial to talk about is just the marketing around the book, around the pre-order, and how much Black Rose has put some energy and resources behind that. But I have personally, essentially treated this like basically I were my own client in a way, and we've done a really heavy amount of Facebook marketing for this, which I think at different points the book has been up around 60,000 on the Amazon rankings on pre-orders for someone who has I have no brand in the horror space.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, and that was Facebook marketing essentially. I mean, it's a good product, I feel like, but it's also so that would be, I think, kind of another. It just tied into it because that's how a fan came across the book and did the animation. Is just how much. And I know this is true whether you're working with an independent smaller publisher or one of the big ones. That if you're not a name author yet, you have to put a lot of your own time, energy, and financial resources into getting that off the ground. So I've treated this in a way not like a book as much as a product that is fighting for shelf space. And with the idea that once you kind of capture some of that shelf space, you have more and more to put on the shelf. So that's been my kind of viewpoint with this, and I think it's been a good approach to it.
That's good advice, though.
Fantastic. I mean, I was going to ask you that question because a lot of people make the mistake thinking, I'm now a published author and I can just sit back and fold my arms and the money's going to roll in magically. It doesn't work that way.
Mm-mm.
I mean, I like to think of things. You're absolutely right, and I like to think of things. I think sometimes a good way to approach something is to think of the most extreme version of it. So, think of if you are a published author and you have written something good, if it goes and sits on a shelf somewhere and no one ever sees it, it's just. I mean, the good writing, and this goes across fiction. It goes across the work we do for clients. Good writing can kind of break out of the pack, but it's not inherent, and whether it's a 140 character tweet or a 200-page book or whatever it might be, you're all in kind of the same boat, fighting for somebody's attention, and you need to push it at people, especially when you're starting out, because hopefully you get to the point where they're coming to you and kind of excited about what you're doing next, but you have to be, realistic enough to know that that's not how it starts out. And especially now with just it's not like before where you published a book and you were one of X number. Now you're one of a universe.
Zillion.
Yeah.
Yeah. You gotta have your niche. Or you've got to have your thing about you that you're doing something a little different than the guy next to you. So
Yeah.
yeah, it makes you stand out. Like Ryan, the little kid who made $22 million last year on YouTube,
Yeah. No,
Uh,
crazy things happen now,
Yep.
but you got to work hard to make it happen. So.
Yeah, you do. Absolutely.
Dustin, where can people find your book in the usual sort of places?
Yeah, so it is available, of course, on Amazon from Black Rose, Target. You can order at Target online, Barnes and Noble. Um, wherever. I know we did a Goodreads giveaway, and I was excited about that because, but I had no idea how to measure. Sort of, I still don't really know how to measure what is a good level of demand. But I know we did 100 free copies, and the giveaway ends tomorrow. And to date, I think we're at about 960 people who've requested it. So,
Wow.
and again, we put money behind that. I boosted a post on Facebook and targeted Goodreads readers along with mixing in there some of the authors that I thought were kind of similar to this book. But that's a case where we're putting money behind people getting something for free, but it's in this sort of early stage of what I hope is a longer, more lucrative, more books, all that sort of thing. Again, they don't know about me now, so we had to push that at people, and we're pretty happy with what we've seen there.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. Well, we're so glad that you joined us today. We thank you so much. And Bridgetti and I always say this time goes by so quickly. We just, before we know it, it's like, okay, we're done, and we still have stuff to talk about. So we'll have to have you back on.
Yeah, my next book, the re-release of The Civil War at Home, comes out in April.
Okay.
So
I'll get
yeah,
you
I'd
back
love to
on
be
the
back on.
calendar. Yeah.
So Dustin, are we going to see some more books coming from you down the line? Has the bug bitten you?
Yes, and so Black Rose approached me back in September if I had any more sort of, I think, horror in me. So I'm about halfway through the first book of what I think will be a trilogy called Working Class Vampires, and real quickly, I know we got to go, but my goal with this horror book was to weave in themes that are not typically included in horror about you know uh, economic themes, social themes, those sorts of things, and kind of like the sci-fi. I grew up watching Twilight Zone. I love it. They always told a bigger story in a fun way. So that's my goal. I don't know if I'll make it there, but that's kind of the idea. So we're applying that to a group of vampire mechanics for the next book. So yeah.
Interesting. Are you a Stranger Things fan?
Um, I am. My daughter though is an even bigger one, and so she's actually for Halloween she is Robin
Oh, she
from
Robin.
the third season. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. My 19-year-old is like, and we were at a Halloween party Saturday night, and like they had a whole room decorated to Stranger Things, and the family, dad was the sheriff, and it's amazing how things like that can take off. I do want to connect you with Thornton Klein because he has signed a movie deal contract, and checks are already in the bank for one of his novels. This is a co-writer and a friend of mine. So
Love that. I really, really appreciate that. Thank you.
yeah, so that way you could get like, hey, how's this, how does this process work? And what did you do? What do you don't do? What have you learned so far? Because it's good for us to support each other and to use that information to help.
Well, real quickly, I promise this will be the last thing I said. When prior to writing The Poor and the Haunted, I listened to a producer named Jason Blum, who's behind Blumhouse, the kind of main sort of they're the biggest sort of horror production studio right now. And he was talking, actually, it was in a series of things where he was interviewed by an economist, and he talked about what they looked for in scripts, because horror is by far and away the most profitable genre, including superhero movies of any.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, I think it's for every dollar that the studio has invested into the Paranormal Activity franchise, they've made 500 back.
Wow.
So
Okay, Jenny, we got to write a crazy paranormal.
he talked about what they look for in a film property in a script, and he said, they actually approach it first from an economic point of view, and they look at the number of speaking roles and the number of sets, and minimizing those are the key to profitability. So actually, this book, I did write that kind of in mind, the poor and the haunted, coming out of, what could this look like as another property and what would make it appealing, and kept that in mind. So yeah, if we can support each other achieving these things, absolutely.
Very smart, very smart. Well, listen, the best of luck to you. We're super excited to be fans of yours and to support you and watch you grow and how your career will go, and have you back on.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
It's a big pleasure. Where can people reach out to you?
They can follow me on Twitter. I'm at D McKissen. I think that's the name of my or the handle for my professional Facebook page. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn. And then you can also send an email directly if you're listening to this. My email is dustin@mckissen.co.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Dustin, thank you so much. It was wonderful getting to know you a little bit better. I want to say a huge big thank you to our audience for joining us. So thank you for watching, everyone. Remember to write good stuff and be inspired, one conversation at a time. And we'll see you same time next week again.
Thank you.
Bye.